What is up, guys? So in this video, I'm going to be going through the math, the critical math that you need to understand to make money on PrizePicks, Underdog Fantasy, and other fixed payout DFS apps. So I use currently 6 main DFS apps, and they all work roughly the same way, which we're going to get into, but they do have slight differences. So for example, on Betr picks, any 3-pick parlay, you are going to get a 5x payout. So you're betting 100 to win 500. On all these other DFS platforms like PrizePicks and Underdog Fantasy, they give you a 6x payout. So knowing the optimal slip type, kind of understanding the math behind these platforms is absolutely critical if you want to make money long term. So I've made a lot of money, over $200,000 in tracked verified profit. Basically all my plays are given out, on social media, either live stream or Twitter, 100% for free. But without further ado, let's kind of get into what are these DFS apps and what makes them different from traditional sports books. So if you look at a typical sports book like FanDuel, you see a bunch of numbers, right? A bunch of odds, minus 114, minus 114. That's the juice. FanDuel is charging $114 that you bet on the over or the under to make back 100, right? That's how the sportsbook makes money. They charge the vig, they charge the juice. There's nothing better for FanDuel than somebody bets the over, somebody bets the under, and they just collect the juice. So what about these DFS apps though? Because if you look at PrizePicks, you'll notice there are no numbers. On PrizePicks, there's just payouts, okay? So these are fixed payout sports books. So if you look at PrizePicks, any 5-pick flex play will give you the following payout: 10x, 2x, 0.4x, depending on how many picks in your slip that you win. And essentially, you can convert that into sportsbook odds. Like for a 5-pick entry on PrizePicks, here's the payout that they're giving you. So how does that compare to sportsbooks like FanDuel, DraftKings, etc.? And essentially on these fixed payout DFS platforms, right, you are getting the same payout if you take a player to go over or under. It does not matter. On PrizePicks, right, it doesn't matter if you take Saquon's over or his under, you are going to get the same payout regardless. So on these DFS apps, essentially, everything boils down to what percentage of your picks can you win. PrizePicks is setting their lines to be roughly 50-50, where the probability that Saquon goes over or under where they're setting his projection line is roughly the same. So the way you win as a sports bettor on PrizePicks or on any of these DFS apps is you win your picks above the break-even win percentage. So for example, let's say you could win your picks 60% of the time. That's really good, right? If you're winning 60% of your picks, that means you're only losing 40% of your plays, and you obviously have an edge, right? If you're able to win 60%, lose 40% of your over-unders, you obviously have an edge. You would be insanely profitable just betting player props on FanDuel. At minus 114 odds, you don't need to win. Like if you're winning even 55% of your picks at minus 114 odds, you are going to be incredibly profitable long term. But obviously that's harder than expected. So essentially, on PrizePicks, on Underdog Fantasy, everything boils down to one simple thing, which is what percentage of your picks can you win? And that changes depending on the slip type. But one thing I wanted to mention is I love making sports betting content, but a lot of people will be like, oh, you don't make that much money on Dabble. And that's true. At this point, unfortunately, Dabble limits me to only $9.45 per bet, right? So on every single Dabble slip that I lock in, you can see right here, they only give me $9.45, which obviously isn't exactly fun, because when I signed up for Dabble, I could play things for $300, $400, $500 a slip. So I ran up my profits, and then the sportsbook was like, hey, you're profitable. So they cut down my max betting limit, and that's why my profit graph goes flat. It's the same thing on Betr picks. At this point on Betr, a book I made over, like $60,000 on last year when I had no limits. At this point, unfortunately, they only let me bet $100 a day, right? Which is pretty crazy. They don't even limit the amount I can bet on each slip, but they limit how much I can bet every single day. But that's why you want to use multiple DFS platforms, right? Like the more books you use, the better. Because first of all, you never know which book is going to have better value on a given day. Sometimes it's Dabble, sometimes it's PrizePicks. But the other reason is if PrizePicks cuts down your max betting size, let's say from $500 a slip to $50 a slip, well, you can take more of your action to Dabble until they limit you, and you can run up profits on Dabble. I mean, I'm limited on every single one of these DFS platforms at this point, but I'm also up over $200,000, and I think that's a fair trade to make. And I started with a very small bankroll on all these DFS platforms, but without any farther, BS that I'm talking about, just kind of rambling, let's get into PrizePicks, the math behind PrizePicks, optimal slip type on PrizePicks, and then we can kind of go from there. So let's start out with PrizePicks, and if you really want to nerd out, I have a full YouTube tutorial breaking down the math behind PrizePicks that you can check out, and I'll link to this video as well as, a spreadsheet I made with the math behind PrizePicks in the description. But basically on PrizePicks, 5 and 6 pick flex plays are mathematically optimal, and essentially you are getting minus 119 juice, right? So on any play on the board for a 5 or a 6 pick flex play, PrizePicks is essentially giving you minus 119 odds. That's how you need to wire your brain. So if you can bet something on FanDuel, I said earlier, FanDuel's minus 114 juice for a lot of these player props. If you can bet something on FanDuel at minus 114 odds, you would much rather do that than including the play in a PrizePicks 5 or 6 flex, even though that's the optimal slip. So basically, let's say, just as a simple example, you can win your player props, your over-unders, 55% of the time, only losing 45%, so you have a real edge. You're going to get destroyed playing 3-pick flex plays. You are going to have a negative 11.5% ROI. You're going to get destroyed long term. However, for a 5 or a 6 pick flex play, for a 6 pick flex play specifically, you are going to have an ROI of 7.5%, really good, right? That's a pretty good return on capital, especially if you're betting on PrizePicks every single day and you're getting a 7.5% ROI, right? Your bankroll is going to grow pretty quickly. So it's very important what type of slip you go with. I'll kind of show you how to play around with this spreadsheet very briefly, and then we'll get on to Underdog Fantasy. So let's very briefly go through this PrizePicks math spreadsheet right here. So basically 5 and 6 pick flex plays, you're getting approximately, rounding up to be conservative, minus 119 implied odds. So for example, if Justin Fields, if PrizePicks had his line at 197.5 and you have access to FanDuel, you would rather just run Justin Fields over on FanDuel over 197.5 at minus 114 because you're getting a better price, right? And you can see here, for 3-pick flex plays, it's absolutely awful. That's the worst type of slip on PrizePicks. You should assume you're getting minus 145 juice on both sides of the spread. Imagine if FanDuel was charging minus 145, minus 145. You have to bet 145 to win 100. It would basically be impossible, to make money. Whereas, let's try to find an example of a play. So here, for example, for Garrett Wilson, if you wanted to take his under, right? FanDuel has his under 5.5 at minus 148. So getting his under 5.5 in a PrizePicks 5-pick flex play at minus 118 actually seems like pretty good value if other books have his under as a much bigger favorite, around minus 150. But let's play around with these numbers quickly. I'll kind of show you how this works. So basically, the first thing you need to think about is what percentage of your picks can you win. You never want to play demons and goblins on PrizePicks. They are all traps. They are all awful payouts, right? You will lose a ton of money playing both of these. And I can give you an example, but just give me a sec first. So if you can win your picks like Hernandez over under 1.5, hits plus runs plus RBIs, and let's say you win your picks 56% of the time, right? You have a real edge. You can win your picks 56% of the time, only losing 44%. Well, you're going to be profitable on 3 slip types out of 7. You will make money on 3-pick powers, as well as 5 and 6 pick flex plays. And you can, again, kind of play around with this. So for, let's say, 6-pick flex plays, if you can win your picks 56% of the time, you are going to have an ROI of 17.6%. Pretty good, right? If you can win your over-unders like Hernandez, over under 1.5, and this is just, again, your break-even rate is going to be about, 54.18% or whatever it is. So even if you can win your picks, or maybe 54.2%. I don't know. We're getting a little bit too in the weeds here. Whereas if you are winning your picks 56% of the time, you're still going to lose money. You are still going to have a negative ROI, negative 8.74%, playing 3-pick flex plays. So that's why optimal slip type is so important. And then what I just wanted to show you is like, okay, why are these demons and goblins in general so bad to play? Is what I can do is I'll just pick a couple random picks. So let's take Randy Arozarena to hit a home run, Colt Keith to hit a home run, and maybe Suarez to hit a home run. Or these games are for Friday. It's currently Wednesday, so let's see if there's anything sooner. So if I take Will Smith, Bryce Harper to hit a home run, on PrizePicks, they're giving me a 15x payout, right? For this, if they both go yard, I basically am turning 20 into 300, 100 into 1500. So let's just see really quickly what is the payout on FanDuel, because again, demons and goblins in general, they are just absolutely awful. So if we go to batter props and we do to hit a home run and we take Harper, and then we take Will Smith. Where are you, baby? You can see FanDuel's giving you plus 2,400 odds, right? So if you bet 20, you're winning 488.58 in profit, 508.58 in total net payout, whereas PrizePicks is only giving you $300. So in general, demons and goblins, like, completely avoid them. Sometimes if there's a no-brainer promo, it makes sense to use them, but again, like, they're just awful payouts. There's no other way to put it. So next we have Underdog Fantasy, and all of these different DFS platforms like PrizePicks and Underdog, they all give you a 3x payout for 2-pick entries, but their payouts start to diverge after the first 2 picks, right? PrizePicks, Underdog. Underdog's a little better for some slip types. PrizePicks is a little better for other slip types, and that's why it's important to know the math. So Underdog, which is my most profitable DFS platform of all time, I have like a 30% ROI. For Underdog, the optimal slip type is a 6-pick flex play. Okay, and you're actually getting the best payouts in the DFS industry with minus 116 implied odds. So just like when we were looking at FanDuel and they're charging minus 114 juice on their player props, on Underdog Fantasy, it's minus 116, minus 116. So if you take a player to go over, under, soccer, MLB, whatever, you should just assume that you're placing that bet at minus 116 odds, which means you have to win 53.8% of your over-unders on Underdog to be profitable playing 6-mans. Okay, so long story short, if there's 6 picks available on PrizePicks or Underdog, you would rather run that slip on Underdog Fantasy as opposed to PrizePicks, although they don't always have the same lines, because again, Underdog is giving you better payouts, your ROI is going to be higher. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is, a lot of people love these 2-pick entries. 2-pick entries are horrible. It's nearly impossible to make money playing 2-pick entries, 3x payout long term. Like my ROI, I'm up like, 23% on Underdog Fantasy. My ROI would be negative if I were running 2-pick entries. That's how extreme of a shift it is, depending on the type of slip you go with. So if you like playing 2-pick entries and you run a few 2-pick entries for the NFL every Sunday, stop doing that. Just run 1 or 2 6-mans. Again, what sucks about 6-pick flex plays is you are going to have more ups and downs, right? These are 25x payout if you go 6 for 6. So you are going to have more ups and downs, right? If you're running 2 picks, it's a lot easier to get 2 picks right as opposed to 6. So in the short term, it feels better to play 2-pick entries because you get the feeling of winning more often. So 6-pick flex plays, you're not going to get the feeling as winning as much. But if you're playing them consistently, you are going to have a much higher ROI over the course of a month, a year, all that good stuff. So again, on Underdog, you should just assume every single thing you're betting, you're getting minus 116 juice. So the main tool I use on OddsJam is the crossed market plus EV tool. And essentially what this shows you is where Underdog is arbitrage or crossed to these extremely sharp betting exchanges, which are Novig and ProfitX. You can see Novig and ProfitX right here. So these are peer-to-peer betting sites, but peer-to-peer does not mean you're betting against your neighbor. The people setting lines on these peer-to-peer apps like Novig and ProfitX in general are trading firms, right? They're really smart. So higher liquidity means, you know, people are more confident in the lines they're putting out. So long story short, here we have a crossed market. On Underdog, we can get Jewel Lloyd's over at minus 116. On Novig, right here, we can get her under at plus 118. You can't have that happen. You can't be able to bet the over at minus 116, which is a 6 flex on Underdog, and bet the under at plus 118, right? You can't have crossed markets. If somebody is offering the under at plus 118, that means that this trading firm is trying to be on the opposite outcome, which is her over at minus 118. And we're getting better odds in an Underdog 6-pick flex play. So I have full tutorials on crossed market betting, but regardless, whenever the market is crossed, those are the highest confidence bets because we know for a fact one of these two bets has to be plus EV, has to be profitable. But regardless, let's put a slip together. So the first play I'm going to go with is Jewel Lloyd's over 8.5 points. Right? There's a ton of liquidity. Higher liquidity means you have a higher confidence in your edge. And then the second play I'm going to go with is Copper, and you can see again, Underdog, you know, they unfortunately only limit me to $25 a slip. So the ideal situation, the highest edge Underdog slips where you have the highest confidence in your edge is if you can get, which I think we're going to be able to do, is if you can get 8 crossed markets. So here, Jake Ferguson's under is being offered at plus 123 on Novig, an extremely sharp betting exchange with trading firms setting their lines, literally quantitative trading firms who win in derivatives markets, stuff like that. They're pretty good at sports and setting sports lines as well. So all of this is just data-driven sports betting. So again, if there's a market maker offering Ferguson's under at plus 123, that means that they're trying to bet on his over at minus 123. If someone's offering his under at plus 123, they're trying to bet his over at minus 123. So long story short, we can put some plays together. This Jackie Young play, actually, I really like pairing with Jewel Lloyd. These are positively correlated as well. Taking 2 players on the same team, both to, you know, go the same direction, that makes a lot of sense. Or sorry, to go opposite directions. Only one player on the aces can score points at the same time. So what I will do finally is I will just check out here what else we have. So this play, for example, is not a crossed market, but it's still a pick. Again, you don't need like a crazy win rate on Underdog Fantasy. You just need to win 54% of your over-unders. So if you look at Chelsea Gray, her under is heavily favored by all these different sports books. So we could take this play instead of the Jackie Young play, but honestly, whatever. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to the final play we have, which is Freddie Freeman to not hit a single. And I don't care what sport I'm betting on. Here you can see the payout, best payout in the DFS industry, period. And now we have a great slip, and then I just lock it in. It's really that simple. They give me a max of $25. And they tell me, oh, you've already bet on Jackie Young. So I actually will switch it out with Chelsea Gray, right? Every data point in the market, FanDuel, Pinnacle's a really sharp book. All these books are data points. We have all these books set their own lines. So we have hundreds of data points telling us, hey, Chelsea Gray's a lot more likely to go under as opposed to over. And that's positively correlated with Jewel Lloyd, right? Only one player on the aces can score at the same time. So now I have a really sharp, really profitable plus EV, however you want to think about it, positive ROI Underdog slip locked in. So next we have Dabble, and I have a full YouTube tutorial, literally going through the math behind Dabble. This is a book I ran up $30,000 profit on, and then unfortunately, like a lot of books do, which is why you want to be using multiple sports books, they cut down my betting limits lower and lower and lower to now being able to bet $9.45 per slip. But regardless, on Dabble, the break-even win rate and the optimal slip type is 3 or 5 pick entries, no insurance. A 3 pick entry and a 5 pick entry have a 55% break-even win rate. So if you can win 55% of your picks, only losing 45%, you have a real edge. You're going to make no money. If you can win 60%, 57%, then you are going to have a positive ROI and make money long term. Next, we have Betr. Okay, Betr Picks is Jake Paul's app. Again, they give you horrible payouts for 3 pick entries, only a 5x payout. Every other DFS platform for perfect entries. But long story short, on Betr, the optimal slip type is a 5 or a 6 pick dynamic play or a 5 pick perfect entry, right? Again, a perfect entry is just a parlay. So 5 pick insured, which is called a dynamic play on Betr, or a 5 pick perfect play, which is just a 5 pick parlay. They're basically the same, about minus 122 implied odds, minus 121. So approximately a 55% break-even win rate, very similar to Dabble. Next, we have Owner's Box, which is a new DFS app I started to use. They give you really good payouts on their 6 pick insured entries, pretty similar to Underdog Fantasy. They are minus 117 implied odds, very similar to Underdog Fantasy, the math that we went through for Owner's Box. And then finally, we have DraftKings Pick 6. So I have a full YouTube tutorial on Pick 6 here. I'll include a card and a link to it, but Pick 6, I recommend just watching the tutorial if you want to start using Pick 6. What's complicated about Pick 6 is depending on the sport and the league you're playing, they give you different payouts. So a WNBA 3 pick entry has a different payout than, let's say, an MLB 3 pick entry. Depending on the sport, depending on the league, and depending on the exact number of picks, they give you different payouts. So for WNBA, I think the optimal slip is like a 6 pick insured entry. Whereas for the MLB, it's just 3 pick power plays at a 6x payout, 55% break-even win rate, very similar to Dabble. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video, kind of going through the math behind all these different DFS platforms. I'm happy to answer any questions. I love making sports betting content. So whatever else I can help with, just comment, let me know. And thank you so much for your time, guys.